Welcome, my dear students of class 11 to this English class with me, your tutor Atinyo Sekose. Today, our topic is called The Diamond Maker by H.G. Wells. You will find it on page 38. It is chapter 5, page 38, The Diamond Maker. So if you have located the page, let's first of all talk a little bit about the author, because that always gives us the understanding context of the lesson. So here you would find that the author's real name is Herbert George Wells, born in 1866 to 1946, and he is a famous English writer who writes novels, commentaries, history, social, and also talked a lot about social issues at that point of time. And he is famously known for, or popularly known for, his science fiction. So you would find that when it comes to science fiction, or in the science fiction literature section, you would find that some of his works are celebrated a lot. That is The Time Machine and War of the Worlds, which are also adapted into movies. And I'm sure some of you must have seen those movies. However, in this lesson here, we are going to take a look at it from the perspective of a diaspora work. In fact, not exactly a diaspora work, but the elements of that diaspora work is found in the science fiction. But in this case, that is The Diamond Maker, it is a combination of the social issues that is being addressed at that point of time. Now remember that in that 19th century, you would find that modernism is picking up pace. At the same time, you would also find that there are a lot of social issues, and the author, H.G. Wells, had also experienced the evils of World War, and he became a very pessimistic person towards the end. So in his work, diasporic work, as well as in, that means science fiction, as well as in his kind of short stories such as The Diamond Maker, you would find that he writes in with a very pessimistic point of view, but at the same time, there are a lot of ironies that you would find here. And we have already discussed what is an irony. Just for a brief revision here, an irony is a poetic device, and we find different kinds of ironies, such as verbal irony, situational irony, and so on. So I want you to keep note of the fact that in this lesson here, we would be having a lot of situational irony as well. So keep those things noted, and we would now proceed on to the context or the setting of the lesson. So the setting, as I've mentioned earlier, it is in the 90s, and the place here is being addressed as London, Westminster. And time here is 9 in the evening, which means it is very late. So I hope you would be able to picture that kind of a evening time, dark evening time. And we also find shadowy outlines, that is traffic light dimly visible in the street light, the lights of this transitional age. That is what the author pointed out. So we find here the perspective of, in fact, the viewpoint of the characters. They see it as a transitional age. We would further understand it as the characters were looking out into the street, and you would find that they were referring to it as such, that the transitional age here is different kinds of vibrant, different kinds of colors, that is red, yellow, orange, and so on, again referring to the traffic movement there. So the place here is Chancery Lane. What kind of a lane? We are coming to a very specific lane here, and the characters were standing at Waterloo Bridge and looking out at the street, at the same time overlooking the river. And the river, as you well know now, that it is evening time and it is dark. Black River, referred to as that. Now the narrator stood near the embankment. Embankment here is standing near the railings and overlooking the city in that manner. And then he encountered, it was a chance encounter, or we can also say this stranger wanted to, maybe he had observed this narrator from before, and you would find that he was also coming to that place that is near the embankment, perhaps to escape his worries. So he encountered a stranger. Now, the context, again, coming back to the context here, it is an era of political chaos and modernism. I've already mentioned that. And keeping those things noted, I want you to read the text or follow the text or this lecture and try to put two and two together in order to get the perspectives of the characters clearer. So now the story opens with an unnamed narrator. Throughout the story, we were not able to find out the name of the narrator, neither the stranger. So the unnamed narrator who came upon a diamond maker. So now we are coming to the topic here, the diamond maker. The hero in our story is not the narrator, but the diamond maker. And the diamond maker is the stranger here. And the stranger, let's refer to it as that for now. So the stranger first strike up the conversation with the narrator by saying a warm night. And that is the context is that again, usually we started a conversation, if it is a complete stranger, usually we refer to the weather. And so that is what he is doing here. Refined man or gentleman is the description, pale looking from the point of view of the narrator. So when he addressed him in that manner, he looked him up and he was able to observe that the stranger appears to be refined and like a gentleman, but very pale looking or very sickly here. And he also noticed that he is a man of uniform. In other words, marked sharply as a uniform. So the way he was dressing, or that suggests that he is probably in the military. So perhaps maybe this person is in his military coat, in fact. Now, here, judging from this appearance of the stranger who's talked to him or who said to him a warm night, he made some judgment. The narrator made some assessment or judgment. And here itself we find the theme, the underlining theme, you might want to note it down, that is appearance versus reality. The narrator started to make some deductions or assessment or judgment based on the appearance of the stranger here. So now, what did he figure? The narrator took him for a tramp. He thought that this total stranger is simply a tramp, and at that point of time, and at that specific time, that is around 9 o'clock, that is in the evening, you would find that only people who have no business would be out in the street. And yet we find these two people just simply trying to escape the realities of life. And so here now this person or the narrator here is by assessing the appearance of the stranger, he thought that the stranger is a tramp. Now, a tramp is usually out in the street who are homeless people, and they usually try to strike up conversations with a complete stranger and then gain their favor or ask for money and so on. So that was his assessment. That was what he took him for. So the theme, that is appearance versus reality. So based on his appearance, he said, the narrator said, you might want to mark this, I fear I was committed to the price of a bed and breakfast if I answered him. So when the stranger tried to strike up a conversation saying a warm night, he realized that, judging by his appearance, he realized that if he started or if he engaged in the conversation, he would have to give him or show him some kindness or favor, and that it would likely lead up to offering him a bed and breakfast as well. That is what usually happens to tramps. So now, or homeless people, they try to seek favors in that way, or they try to ask for kindness to total stranger. So here, again, we get another perspective of the narrator here. So he is trying to decide whether to engage in the conversation or not. And we figured here that to tell me worth the money, if I started engaging in the conversation, would he be able, is he worth my money that he is likely to give to the tramp, as he thought, or would it be a valuable and engaging conversation? That is what he is trying to think first. Then he realized, on closer inspection, he realized that it struck him that the stranger there was a quality of intelligence. So the way he appeared, the stranger appeared, he also realized that there is a certain aura of intelligence that is present in the stranger, even though he appeared very sickly or poor or pale looking person. So he decided, that is the reason why he decided to reply and engage in the conversation. Now, what is the conversation here? The stranger and the narrator exchange the discussion of a pleasant night out in London, covered in mist to clear one's weary mind. So that is how the conversation started, and you would find that the stranger started talking about how pleasant it is out to be in the London street like that and in that manner, and looking out into the traffic lights covered by the mist, and how everything seems to be quietening down. And you would find that he also mentioned that that was such a relaxing experience from all the hard work or the pressure of business. So that is what the stranger pointed out. Now, the narrator realized he was hard up, dirty and unkempt. On closer inspection, he realized that this stranger is very hard up, which means he appears to be very poor, dirty and unkempt, contradictory to his talk of irksome worries of a large business. So the way the stranger is carrying on the conversation, talking about large business, how it is very stressful to be working in a big project like that. And now, so that is the irony that we find here, the situational irony. The way he's talking appears, the stranger appears as though he is an intelligent person and that he is someone in big business, and yet the reality is that he looked very poor, sickly, and he appeared as though he hasn't taken a bath for days and in need of a place to sleep and so on. So these become a very contradictory thing according to the opinion of the narrator. And he thought either he was mad or playing a sorry jest. Either this person, the stranger, must be simply joking or trying to trick him. So that's what he thought initially. Now, trying to trick him for what? Trying to trick him for money or favor. So he replied, now here is the sarcasm here. If high aims and high positions have their drawbacks of hard work and anxiety, they have their compensations. Influence of power of doing good, of assisting those weaker and poorer than ourselves, and there is even a certain gratification. So here we are coming to the idea. Now this is the narrator's opinion shared to the stranger. So here we are coming to the idea of H.G. Wells, his perspectives or his philosophy or his experience of society, that those people who are in a position or in a power to influence the weaker section of people do so. They were in a power to do so. At the same time, it also gives them certain gratification. That is, gratification in the sense that it gives them the pleasure of having the understanding that they are able to help someone. And here, gratification is again very ironic. Why? Because it can be that the person who is in power helped out someone all because he wanted to show off or because of ego problems and so on. So that is the sarcasm that we find here. At the same time, he's also pointing to the stranger that if he belongs to he belongs, in fact, to such a big company, and that means that he must be earning a lot, then he should be in power to influence someone who is weaker than him. And yet, here is the contrast again. Here, he is talking about big companies, big business, and stress of work, and so on, and yet he appears to be very poor. So that is the contradictions that we find and the irony as well. Now, at this point of time, even the narrator was a little surprised with himself when he pointed it out in that way, that he was being a little harsh, but the narrator's belief and principle is also being reflected here. So there we have irony. And at that point of time, the stranger said, I spoke on the contrast of his appearance. In fact, the narrator said, I spoke on the contrast of his appearance and speech. So that is again the theme of our story here. The story is completely dedicated to the diamond maker. The diamond maker has spent so many years in making the diamonds, but unfortunately, he couldn't sell his diamonds due to his due to his appearance. So that is the contradictory, the irony that we find here. So the line of irony throughout the story is very interesting. At the same time, remember, we have talked a little bit about how the author is also a very pessimistic writer here. So that is what we will find in this story. He was only busy making the diamonds, which was only his single goal. In order to achieve his dreams, he somehow forgot to enjoy life in between. So that is the short summarization of what happens after that when they started engaging in the conversation. He couldn't sell any diamonds which could make him rich, and ultimately he was not happy in life. And those are the tits and bits of what happened in the discussion and what is being revealed about the diamond maker. So you would find that that is the short summarization of the lesson here. I hope that you would take some time to read the whole text, and when you are reading, this is one tip that I would suggest. We have already discussed about the context, we have already discussed a little bit about the author's background. So using those informations and using the textbook information, try to infer, try to make your own understanding, comprehension of the text instead of getting involved with the personal, that is the reader's personal opinions of the text, because when you do that, it would confuse you. So that is one of my suggestions here, and take some time to read the rest of the lesson. We would be continuing with the lesson here, but make sure you read it first and then try to follow this lecture as well. So that is what we have here, and very quickly, here is the recap here. The author is a very pessimistic, that is H.G. Wells is a very pessimistic writer, and he is also popularly known as a science fiction writer. In the story, The Diamond Maker, the hero is the stranger, that is the diamond maker. One of the major or prominent or underlining theme is also the appearance versus reality. And so that is what we have discussed so far. And now we are going to find out how, when this criticism were being given to the stranger, that is the narrator is not able to understand the stranger and basing his judgment on appearances only. Now, what happened to the stranger or the diamond maker? What is his point of view in regarding the way he appeared, and what is his point of view that he appeared very poor looking, sickly, and so on. What is the kind of characteristic traits that he has that led him to that place in London and looking out at the street and trying to strike up a conversation in order to make ends meet. So those are some of the questions that we have. So when you read, make sure you try to answer those questions, and that will also help you with the understanding of the text. And on that note, we would be winding up today's class. Thank you all very much for joining me.